Eric Garner, Ferguson fallout, and the UVA rape case. I'm Taylor Kinsler, and this is the Square Circle. Hello and welcome to the Square Circle. I'm your host, Taylor Kinsler. Joining us today are Gregory Clay of gdclay.com, Lacey Crawford of Social Security Works, and conservative writer and editor Brian McNichol. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.
This week, a grand jury in New York decided not to indict Officer Danielle Pantaleo in the chokehold death of 43-year-old Eric Garner. Coming on just a week after the Ferguson decision, this newest episode sparked a fresh round of protests around the country. There seems to be widespread agreement that Pantaleo was at fault. Now, Brian, is this one of those rare moments when left and right agree? And if so, what kind of reform do you think we can see?
I think you're going to see, I think there is a moment when left and right agree. What a difference a little video makes, huh? Because, you know, there are just completely different versions of what happened in Ferguson, but in this, we all agree. There's the video, there's what occurred. I think a number of things are at work here. One is there's going to be a review of the program where federal government gives military equipment and so forth to police. There will be a move to sack it. I don't know if sack it is right, but I think that it does need some strong looks. I think we have to rethink where police fit in our society. The thing about the military is, okay, as a conservative, we don't, local law enforcement should pay for itself. It should be paid for by the local government, the local people, run that way. When you start pouring in a lot of resources from elsewhere to it, you give it capabilities that it may not be prudent for it to have, okay? So, like, you remember Hill Street Blues, the captain, he would call in the leaders of the gangs. Okay, this nun got killed last night. I want this head on a pike, or you will see a harassment campaign you will regret, okay? He had to win their cooperation. He worked with them. Now it's just, we have so much stuff, we just will pound you, and that's not healthy. That's not helping us, and it's not helping the police.
It's amazing that we had a video of this man losing his life and we didn't get an indictment. So I think there's some systematic problems that we have to solve. For one, you have prosecutors that work with law enforcement all the time to, do their job, to enforce the law. But when you have a policeman who's being brought up on, the death of a victim, you have that same prosecutor having to then go and try to prosecute this person. So that's a flaw in our system that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, the captain on the Hill Street Blues, his wife was the prosecutor.
Right.
So it's just about that closer relationship everywhere, right. And so
also known as Veronica Hamill.
That's right.
That's right. It's interesting that it took Eric Garner and video to bring Washington politics together. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what's so wild about this, because even John Boehner is calling for a review, and George Bush said that he was puzzled by this decision. Kenny Crowley of CNN interviewed him, so the interview will be on her show on Sunday, State of the Union, and it's just wild. Charles Krauthammer, one of the most conservative columnists in the country, was calling for an indictment. And he said that it's reprehensible that there was no indictment. And Glenn Beck, these are widely known conservatives to the bone, to the bare bone.
I think it says there's something to be optimistic about here, because
Yes.
when we know the facts,
Right.
The people are like, okay, cop beating up black guy, bad. Get those guys and, get that, stop that, immediate
Right.
negative reaction. No,
Right.
not many people are defending this cop.
Well, I'd like to remind our audience at home that they can submit their questions to our guests through our website at www.publicsquare.net. We'll answer as many as we can on air at the end of the show. Now, as we mentioned before, last week a grand jury failed to indict Officer Darren Wilson for the shooting death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. There's been plenty of commentary on the decision, and now there is commentary on the commentary. Charles Barkley, Chris Rock, John Scarborough, to the St. Louis Rams. It seems that we're having the dreaded national conversation on race, whether we wanted to or not. Gregory, what are your thoughts?
Well, the commentary on the commentary. The good thing is that it's very diverse, which is good, and it's so you get so many different viewpoints. I saw when Joe Scarborough went off on his show the other day, when he called Michael Brown a thug, and he said that why are people holding this guy up, as a hero, et cetera, and he was blasted on Twitter. I mean, he was roasted, but it didn't stop him, because he stood by his comments the next day, and I give him credit for that. I also give Charles Barkley credit for what he said. I mean, because he supported the police, and he made some comments that a lot of folk didn't like, and I felt that many of the things that he said were true, and just because people don't like it doesn't mean that you can't say it. I mean, he straight up said that a lot of predominantly black neighborhoods need police. That's true. But of course, a lot of black folk roasted Charles Barkley. Because he said that. Because a lot of people are in denial in this country. And I call it denial and deflect, D&D. There are a lot of things that I think a lot of black folk in this country know about, but become too politically correct and too defensive when some of these things are true. And I think several of the points that Charles Barkley made were true, and a lot of people don't want to recognize it because either A, you're embarrassed, or B, you don't want your dirty laundry out on the street for everybody to hear.
Can I chime in on that? So I get what you're saying. I'm one of those guys who believes, hey, if you have your pants sagging, you should pull them up. You should, speak English very well. All those good things. But oftentimes I see people, when black people are killed in the streets, they bring this up. They bring, well, you need to pull your pants up. You need to do this. Yeah, that's an issue, but that's not the issue we're talking about right now. And that's why I always wonder, why are these media people even interviewing Charles Barkley? We know how he feels about these issues. He supported the verdict for George Zimmerman. I mean,
yeah, I did too.
I know how he feels, and I didn't. And I know how he feels about those issues.
Finally, there's a rape story at the University of Virginia that took a strange turn this week. Several bloggers raised questions about the Rolling Stone story about the alleged assault, specifically whether its author, Sabrina Rubin Erdely, attempted to interview the alleged attackers. Now, others have come to Elderly's defense, saying that questions are merely a distraction from the larger story of rape culture on campus. Late on Friday, Rolling Stone actually withdrew its support from the article. Lacey, what are your thoughts on this?
So I feel like this is kind of like a shining ball thing. You see a shining ball and you go after it. Unfortunately, it looks like there was some type of troubles with the Rolling Stone report. But I think there still is an issue with campus rape. And the Rolling Stone article allowed other people to come forward and say, well, this happened to me also. I know that they're going to be criticized, but they will be criticized nevertheless if they come forward. So I think it got something started. It's unfortunate that Rolling Stones had a issue apology today on their website, saying they no longer have trust in the victim. I think other things could have been done with that, but at least it got people to focus on this important issue of rape, and some victims got to come forward. So.
Well, one of the things that's in the modern media landscape, there is, a conservative media and a liberal media, and the conservative media, it tends to talk to conservatives, and so you don't get around to you say, oh, Democrat X is terrible on whatever. Well, we don't call Democrat X and ask him why that is. We don't make that tough phone call anymore. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of, I think, connected to that. Those are tough phone calls to ask a guy, were you involved in this? And did you think you were doing something wrong? And, what did the girl say? Did she seem willing? Whatever the thing is. But we don't make that tough call in the press. And we get away with it, and we let each other get away with it because we get bias confirmation, right? Mm-hmm. You read a story, that's exactly what I think. Yeah, and I don't need to hear some Democrat explain to me the reason that it's all wrong, or some Republican, challenge my assumptions about this. When that's exactly what is needed, is to challenge our assumptions about it. Somebody needed to go ask these questions. And my theory is, I don't know if the girl, I don't know what happened. None of us know. But I don't think she made from what it looks like and what everyone is saying who's asked her, that they made the effort to contact the people they were accusing of stuff.
Right. It's a very strange situation. I mean, the thing with Rolling Stone and the Virginia rape situation is that it sounds like the author and Rolling Stone, to quote that old saying, made a deal with the devil to get Rasputin. That's what it sounds like to me. Made a deal with the devil to get Rasputin. Because it sounds like that. The woman quoting the story, I think her fake name is Jackie, I believe. Sounds like she said, "Okay, I'll do this story, but I don't want you to talk to anyone else involved. The men. And the author and Rolling Stone apparently went for that. And so, this old journalism line about both sides, getting both sides.
Your mama tells you she loves you. Check it out.
Check it out.
That's right.
And so they essentially took her word for everything. You don't hear from the guys. And I heard someone say that. Well, she had said that they supposedly had tried to reach some of them or whatever, but they couldn't do it. But if that's the situation,
hold the story.
Then you
that next month.
Hold it or whatever. Try to get it, but especially being a magazine, because magazines are feature oriented anyway.
Yeah. It's a long deadline.
It's like long deadline and everything. Most magazines, have publish stories that have shelf life. Yeah. And
at some point, somebody made the call that we don't have all these people represented. We don't have their voice in it, but we're going to run it anyway.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a bit strange.
Some editor had to know.
Now we're talking about that story,
Right, exactly.
So.
Maybe Rolling Stone felt that, and this is only my conjecture, my theory, is that maybe Rolling Stone felt that it had to get the Virginia rape story out with the fraternities and everything as soon as possible, because sexual assaults at colleges are a hot topic right now.
Well, do you think this says something more about journalism and the media in general, that they're so willing to get the story out there that they're not willing to check their sources?
Yeah, definitely.
So there is a big, we used to talk about, I grew up in the newspaper business, and we used to talk about the worst thing was blank pages. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, there's no limit to the blank pages. It's on and on and on that you have to keep filling this beast. Right. And there's no the normal checks. It's like you can only sell so many ads. Right. Your market was only so big. Right. There were things that kept down the demand for news. But now, there's as many electrons as you want out there.
Exactly right. Yeah, because the media are so much different than it was, even 10 years ago.
You're doing
with social
so much
media
more.
And Twitter, and Facebook. You can get your message out so many different ways now, and TV is much more powerful now, and now that you have, Fox and MSNBC and CNN.
When I was doing it, you as a reporter, you did not write headlines. Right. The editor wrote the headlines. Now, you write 3 headlines, and you write 3 suggested tweets, and you write 3 email promos in addition to your story.
Right.
So so that takes some time too.
Exactly. You're accountable for so much more now.
Yeah.
You're accountable for so much more now. Yeah.
And you're trying to be catchy and clickbait, and there's people identifying.
Make people go to your page.
Yeah, and it's
so you have to be provocative.
It's a race, and
you have to be provocative.
and it's a lot of money riding on getting it right.
A lot of money, right? And this story, of course, definitely is provocative.
Yeah.
Definitely is provocative. And because when you see major college and rape in the same sentence and fraternities and all that, it definitely draws the reader.
All right, we're going to move on to a few questions from our viewers now. First is from Gerald Wallace. Why is the media not talking about the Democratic staffer being accused of sexual assault? Shouldn't this at least get more attention than the GOP staffer who had to resign about criticizing the Obama girls? Anyone want to weigh in?
Yeah, I agree. They should cover it. I think the media should be unbiased, and they should cover both of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I have to say.
Yeah. And the thing with the GOP staffer who criticized President Obama's daughters, it's also ideology.
It's some just basic news value. The
Right.
victim of the Democratic staffer is unknown. Right.
Unknown.
The victims of the Republican staffers are the president's
Obama's
daughters.
children are known.
It's
also name recognition.
Yeah.
He's talking about name.
I hear you. I hear the concern, and I got you. And there are a lot of things that are covered the way they are, but depending on where you are ideologically.
Right.
But that's from a news judgment reason.
Name recognition.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because you're right.
It's the president's children.
The children. Exactly. Right.
And I remember I saw that picture that day, and I was like, I feel bad for them because I can just imagine they're doing their homework or they're talking, they're being teenagers, whatever that entails in their world of where you're living in the White House.
Right, and they're in the public eye 24/7.
And then somebody came to them and said, "Can y'all come downstairs and stand here for the stupid turkey pardon ceremony?" And they're like, "Okay," because you could just see them standing there going,
"Oh well, we're forced to attend this function." I'd rather be someplace else and attend.
But not
hanging out with turkeys,
but not looking forced. Looking like, okay, this goes with the job. It's pretty cool being the president's daughter.
Except
every once in a while, I got to stand here and watch.
I don't want to hang out with turkeys.
Yeah,
that's their basic viewpoint. I don't want to hang out with turkeys.
All right, we'll move on to the next question now from Vicky Mathis. She said, if the NYPD doesn't allow officers to hold someone in a chokehold, then shouldn't the officer be subject to some kind of discipline?
Well, I think it's, what was one? Was that one or was another one? Before the cop called in that someone was hurt and needed help, he called the union to see what his union consequences.
I did see a headline about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think it's the same case. I don't think it's Garner. Case, but it's sort of tell you, that goes to public employee union contract, and I bet little or nothing happens to the cop.
Right, and also with if there's no indictment, then of course what the families do, they sue, and the Eric Garner case, to me, is much different. I think you have to compartmentalize those cases. The Eric Garner family, I think, has a much better chance in terms of recouping much money. And New York is used to this. You just remember, New York yearly doles out something like $250 million. In police lawsuits.
They have
a special
office
fund
that all it does is deal with it. And most of them they just settle. They don't even go to court.
Yeah, they have a special fund for this. So, and plus I think the Garner family has a much better case than Michael Brown's family. Because again,
they got video.
They have the video.
No matter what we think of the evidence, one of them's got video and one of them is conjecture.
Exactly, right. And plus the Michael Brown family, if I were them, I would be careful in terms of civil suits. Because one thing, civil suits are totally different than criminal cases. Because in civil suits, it's like anything goes. And the burden of proof is different. It's a preponderance of evidence.
All
you need is 51%. But the problem with
the discovery rules are different.
Discovery rules are different. Like, basically anything can come in. Yeah. And the family had better be careful. Why? Because anything and everything that Michael Brown ever did wrong in his life, in his life is coming out in that civil case. It wasn't in the criminal case.
Well, normally
but,
in this
criminal
case, that's
yeah.
the
it's coming out
of the defense attorney.
It's coming out in the civil case.
I mean, look at O'Mara for my man.
Yeah, Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman.
I mean, they put Trayvon on trial. That wasn't a
yeah, but remember, there were a lot of things that weren't allowed in evidence.
Case.
There were a lot of things regarding Trayvon Martin that were not allowed in evidence. The judge ruled it out. Some of his personal transgressions were ruled out. But in the civil case with Michael Brown, all this stuff is going to come out, and people will see it.
All right, we're going to move on. Ricardo Colon asks, is the racism of today the same kind of racism we saw before the civil rights movement, or is it totally different?
That's a big question.
That's a hell of a question.
It's a heck of a question.
Yeah.
I think we've made progress. I don't know if that progress has been sustained, because you still have black people getting killed by police and not being able to have justice the same way as their fellow Americans have it. So,
but your opponent now is an institution.
Yeah. So you had the blatant racism, the straight up blatant racism, which is still alive today, but I don't think it's that much. And then you have your institutional racism.
Yeah, that's what this is.
And that's what we're fighting against.
Well, but one thing though, I have to say this, because this might be the best opportunity. When it comes to racism and movements and all that, I think it's disingenuous when people compare what's going on today with what happened in the 60s in terms of the civil rights movement. Because I hear these people who are saying, well, this is the new Selma, and this is the new Montgomery, and this is the new March on Washington, and all that. Every time I hear that, I find it offensive. And I hear so many black folks saying that. Well, the Michael Brown case is the new Selma. I'm like, oh, no, it's not. And people comparing Michael Brown to Emmett Till. I mean, come on. No way. And comparing him to the 3 civil rights workers who were killed in '64 in Philadelphia, Mississippi. It's totally different. Michael Brown is not Emmett Till. I'm sorry. Emmett Till was not going for somebody.
I don't know that one's that far off.
Emmett Till.
So the people who murdered Emmett Till, they went to a trial at least.
Emmett Till was not.
They actually had a trial.
They got off.
They got off. We can't even get a trial for some of these
Emmett Till was not going for somebody's gun.
So I understand.
Emmett Till was not going for Michael Brown.
Emmett Till's blood was not on some cop's gun like Michael Brown. I'm sorry. No, this is not Selma. Remember, Selma to Montgomery was about voting rights. Okay, March on Washington, August 28, 1963.
Well, this is about self-determination too. This is very much, and the point I was getting to was the source, the racism you were fighting. Okay, the police didn't kill Emmett Till, right?
Yeah.
They didn't kill the 3 civil rights. The
Ku Klux Klan
it was a private enterprise. Okay,
right.
Now in racism, the violence of racism, the spearhead of it is government sponsored. This is what happens when you let the government get too big. And when we say this, everybody's like, big government. It can help you, but it's now controlling you to a degree that you can't tolerate. This is state. This comes from the state.
But there's another element in this thing. I'm sorry. There's another element in this thing, too. And Charles Barkley brought this up. And I think he's right about this. He said that, changing behavior, and like Charles said, so many people only talk about police officers changing their behavior, and like you said, that's what most black folk want, but the cops got to change their behavior. But hey, some of the black cats have to change their behavior too. It's a two-way street. It's like marriage.
That's true.
It's like marriage. It's not all on the cops. That's where I'm coming from. I mean, some of these cats, have to change their behavior also. Black cats. Michael Brown. Was he running? Was he resisting arrest?
Yeah, but did you see this thing? There was this thing on Twitter this week, criming while white.
Yeah, saw that. Yeah, that's very interesting.
So
about all the white folks
who
committed crimes and got away with it.
Yeah, it's like I was out with my 3 white friends and 1 black friend, and we all stole something, and they
the black dude was the only one who was arrested.
And that's the issue.
That's the issue.
And the black dude was the only one who was arrested.
And that's what I mean.
I saw that.
I understand what you're saying about that. we
You
have
know?
to do something about
Yeah,
black
but
on black crime.
behavioral
But if you bring that up, why not
changes
bring up white on white crime?
on both
which is
sides.
86%.
I'm still
white
on-
people kill white people an enormous amount.
I'm
What
still
are we
on-
gonna
You
do
kill the
about
people
that?
you know.
I'm still-
you know, it's not a
It's
whole
very
lot
si-
of
it's very silo,
strangers
but that-
killing.
Well,
It's,
well,
you
But that's
know,
my whole
I'm still
point.
on behavioral
It
changes
muddies-
on both sides.
It muddies.
It's a
I-
two-way
I-
street.
I don't
It
disagree
It's like
with
a
that.
marriage. It's like
But
a
you
marriage.
have a
Because you
situation-
have to
This
ask.
is called respectability politics.
Yeah.
I know
All
right
right.
now.
We're
with
going to
my
move on to the
suit and
next
tie-
question. I apologize, gentlemen. Last one. It's from Erica Wright. Take a deep breath. Okay. How does the panel feel about Michael Brown's stepfather's emotional outburst?
Oh, God. Oh, I wrote a story on that. That dude should have been arrested. He should be in jail right now. I wrote a story on that. It's on my website. It's called Black Privilege. What does that mean? That means a lot of black folk in this country believe they have the privilege to riot and loot and burn stuff down. You know,
Wow,
it's
I
like it's like an entitlement,
So-
like Social Security, Medicaid, whatever you want to call it. I wrote a whole story on that.
I'm gonna have to
And
read that story.
The
I'm
title,
sure it's pretty
the title is what about black privilege?
What about
you know,
black
that's right.
privilege?
You
I'm
know,
writing that
1,000
down
words
right
on
now.
black privilege. Nobody wants to talk about black privilege. You know, except I guess me, Gregory Clay.
I
you know,
guess
and,
so.
well,
I mean,
apparently
like,
so. You know, but
we
hey,
can't even
I,
get-
Hey, if there's money in it, I'll start talking about it.
you know, back to the bread. But you know, but to me, it is an issue.
So,
It is an issue. Yeah. Okay. Something.
I've never
something,
heard of that. Actually, I've never heard of.
Well,
black-
hey, I'm bringing it out. You know,
So,
I'm bringing it out. I am introducing it to the world.
I will definitely
Since
have
these
to
cases
read
have
your-
become international. It's
I
not
will
just
definitely have to
national,
read your,
international. Yeah,
article.
it's there.
It's true.
But
It's
there.
the whole world.
The whole
to
world is
That's
watching
right.
this thing.
But to the
You know, 1,000
question-
words on black
And
people.
they
I wrote it
think we're
myself.
nuts.
Yeah, to the
You know,
question.
the dude should be in prison.
He should
The
be
dude
in
incited a
prison.
riot. The stepfather, Lewis Head is his name, should be in prison.
But
It's
is
incited a
blaming
riot.
him the right move?
Yes, it's the right move.
There were thousands
I
of
don't-
protesters.
No, I
Yeah,
did
that's
not
the right
think that
move.
was the right move
Yeah.
at all.
Oh,
I mean,
the
you had
dude-
Darren Wilson who gets to walk off scot-free. He gets to call Michael Brown a demon and whatnot and say that he was running through bullets as he shot him like he was some kind of supervillain, which goes to some ugly truths about America. But because his stepfather in his emotion said that, I don't agree with that. But to be brought up on charges and put in
Yes.
prison,
Yes.
that's a little harsh.
Well, because
someone
if you were to
harsh.
do that,
You
then
have
you would
someone
have to
who's dead on
do
the
the
street who-
multiple
who got-
protesters who were out there.
His
Looting.
stepson
Yeah,
got-
they should be in jail too.
His
I got
stepson
no
got
problem with
shot in
that.
the head,
You know?
and there's no justice.
Oh, come
He's
on.
just supposed
Come on.
to
No,
pull his pants up
Yeah,
and
right.
continue to walk and just be like, "Oh, everything's
Right.
peachy."
No. Why should this dude be
No.
in jail?
No.
Because of the people, the business owners who lost their livelihoods. You know,
How about his,
listen, people
stepson who lost
people,
his life?
people don't talk about
How
them.
about his
Well,
stepson
also-
who
I
lost
think
his
the
life?
other
business
thing as
owners are the
well-
lost commodity in this whole story.
How about
I think you have to consider that he's a
stores
parent.
burned down.
I mean,
He
as a
lost-
parent, could you
What?
imagine losing your child and then going to a protest of that nature? Of course, you're going to lash out in some way, but I think
You gonna lash out like that?
But I think blaming
Yeah.
him for
Gonna lash out like that?
multiple people's
Oh, come
actions.
on.
I don't
You
know.
don't. No. I'm not going for that. I'm not letting this cat off the hook. I'm sorry. Y'all can do it. I'm not doing it.
So what-
I am
what should
not
he do?
letting this cat off the hook. You know, I mean, I go to my grave saying that. You know, I'm serious. You know, the
Well,
cat
we-
should have been charged. The cat should
We
be in
disagree.
jail.
We disagree.
You know, no,
Uh,
I'm not letting this cat off the hook.
That's fine. We disagree.
You know,
All right. Well, now it's time for our most underreported story of the week. Lacey, would you like to start?
Sure. So I brought in an article of this 7-year-old violinist who wants to bring peace to Ferguson. Her name is Leah Flynn, and she can play pretty good. If I had my iPad here, I'd show you guys. But you can go to thegrio.com to look for the article. So she wants there to be peace on Earth, and she wants it to begin with her. So that's my underreported story.
It's a beautiful story. Anyone want to go next?
The INDA, National Defense Authorization Act, that must pass legislation every year. It's passed for 50 straight years. That sets defense policy and what Congress will pay for and so forth in terms of defense policy. That's been larded up this year with the president wants to set 640,000 more acres of land out of development, make it parks or national parks or parks to be. We already have something like a $4 billion backlog of maintenance on our national parks. We have almost more than a third of the land in the United States is controlled by the federal government. it owns way too much land. It has that land, then it doesn't manage it well. They have pollution problems that they don't have on private land. No one can earn any money or, no prosperity. These places like, Nevada, 90% of it is owned by the federal government. And so outside of the cities of Las Vegas and Reno, you can't create any wealth. You can't do anything to make money because it's fenced off and owned by the federal government. They need to be getting rid of land, not adding to it.
Yes. My most underreported story of the week involves one Oliver Friedfeld. Who is Oliver Friedfeld? He was a student at Georgetown, right here in the nation's capital. Okay. He is walking down the street. Two black dudes rob him. Okay. He writes a story about it for the Georgetown newspaper. And he says that he harbors no bitterness toward the guys. He basically said the dude should have robbed him. Why? Because he comes from a life of privilege. Therefore, and because they are underprivileged and live in ghetto areas and all this stuff, and they don't know any better, therefore they should not be in jail. In fact, this is what he wrote. Oliver Friedfeld. He said, who am I to stand from my perch of privilege, surrounded by multi-million-dollar homes and paying for a $60,000 education, to condemn these young men as thugs? It's precisely this kind of quote-unquote otherization that fuels the problem. Now, I mean, the guy's robbed. He doesn't want anybody to go to jail. He is feeling more guilty than the cats who robbed him. How crazy is this? I mean, if I'm a parent and I'm paying $60,000 for this dude to go to Georgetown, I am livid. I'm serious. I'm livid. I'm telling him, hey, I'm telling you, say, look, son, if you're gonna write stuff like that in Georgetown paper, you got to pay your own way. Because it's the parents' money that he's talking about. It's not his bread. It's the parents' bread. I'm not supporting, a child. I'm giving him $60,000 to go to school. He's robbed. Oh, well, they can have everything I want. No, and this dude, he'll say, hey, you can come back to my dorm and take everything I got. The way this guy's going, and it's no way. I'm telling him, you want to go to school, you pay the money yourself, because there's no telling what you might do. And this guy, he's not crazy. He's what I call stone cold crazy. There's a difference. Crazy is just, regular crazy. Stone cold crazy is crazy to the highest degree, the zenith, the apex. Okay? That's where I'm coming from.
I think his heart is in the right place.
Oh, God, please.
But I have to say I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't know.
I agree with you.
Heart in the right place.
Tell people that.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't believe.
he's trying.
I don't believe.
Yeah, he's trying to do something good.
No, he ain't supposed to get robbed like that.
I do not believe.
But it's
Some
not.
dude gets robbed and his heart in the right place. Hey, them cats would have robbed me. Hey, I guarantee you.
In my opinion, I think he's
those two cats would have robbed me. My heart is not going there. My heart is not going there. I would have sued those two dudes. Guarantee you that. I would have told the cops, look, I want them in prison and I am suing them. And then the cops say, well, he doesn't have anything worthy. Then I'm saying, I want whatever he has.
He was trying to make a bigger point.
Whatever he has.
He probably overdid the point.
He definitely overdid. Writes the whole story on
your
it.
heart is not
compassion in
the
heart.
Compassion, but that's a little bit too much.
Definitely too much.
All right, gentlemen. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. I want to thank you all for participating in a very lively debate, and thank you to our viewers at home for tuning in. We'll see you next week.